Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm afraid my Spanish is not good enough for me to present to you in Spanish, so I will be speaking English. But I have been very impressed with everybody's English, and hopefully, I know there was no wine at lunch, but maybe there was a little something in the Coca-Cola that means that you can hear a little bit more. You can see the presentation title here. I'm building off of what you heard from Giuseppe and what you heard from Nikki earlier. Do you remember them saying this? They said, should it and when? That is what my presentation is about. And the reason that I am standing here today in front of you is because I was a marketer too. I started my career working in startups, working in scale-ups, and eventually led marketing for a big globally public listed company. And one of the things I absolutely adored about marketing is what we've been talking about today, this blend of commerce and creativity in the best possible way. And I got to try lots of new things. I got to push the envelope as long as I was able to build a rigorous case and prove return. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about impact, how we make great decisions. But then something happened. I suddenly became responsible for digital transformation at that big enterprise I was talking about. And then a few years ago, I became responsible for AI transformation. And that really reinforced for me, across all of my experience, how marketing is the most phenomenal place, I am convinced, to lead change when it comes to emerging technology within businesses. Not because we have the biggest budgets, not because we have the most creative ideas, not because we're ready to adopt tools, but because marketing is the place where we can see customers as people, not just segments, not just data, but people. And it's also the reason I crossed over to the consulting side. So as you saw on my first slide, I'm now the CEO of a data and AI consultancy. And the reason that I moved into that space is because I was tired of getting strategy decks designed by very well-intentioned people who had never actually had to ship something in an organization. And so at ADC, what we do is we bring together design, decision science, and AI engineering, and together we create that entire arc from strategy, design, and delivery, making sure that what we recommend actually gets implemented. So the stories I'm going to tell you today come from actually implementing AI solutions within organizations. So I stand before you today as a marketer first, a transformation lead second, and a consultant third. And over the next 40 minutes, what I want to do is I want to give you what I had always hoped somebody would give me in marketing. The real action, practical tools that I can use to turn theory into action. So I'm going to cover three things. I'm going to talk about where actually AI should live in your business, and I'll call that the invisible work. I'm going to talk about where actually your humanity should show up, and you're going to see some of the themes that Nikki and Giuseppe talked about, taste and judgment. And then you also heard Nikki talk about Mondays. Maybe I should have characterized this as Fridays, but I have 4 moves that you can make over the next Mondays that are incredibly practical. And I will end with a QR code where you can download the tools and the frameworks that I'm going to share with you today so you can put these into practice. Okay, we're going to start with people. If I said that marketing is the best place to make change happen, it is because we can see people. I don't know how many of you have seen this video. I have ridden in Waymos several times, and I can't get enough of this video. This is a couple of older gentlemen experiencing a Waymo, a robotic taxi, an autonomous driving car for the first time, and their expression for me is exactly what we talk about when we talk about the customer going through every possible emotion when they experience new technology.
Do you trust this? Oh my God. Oh, here he is. Well, that's a car. What's that thing on top?
I don't know.
A jaguar!
Hello, Amanda.
Oh my goodness. You got a jaguar. Where is the guy? What?
Buckle up.
Well, where?
Heading to Xanadu Coffee Company.
Oh, no, Amanda. Do you trust this? Amanda. I mean, oh my God. I cannot believe this.
Are you buckled?
Yes, I want to be buckled. How in the... Where? Well, how did it get down here?
I called it.
You called it.
I did.
Call who?
The car.
There's no driver.
I know.
Oh. Amanda, is it... In other
Jerry
words,
says he's scared.
I am too. In other words, you're selling these? Well, where's Jenny? We got big... Amanda, look at you. It's... Amanda, but won't this car get... what are the cops will see this?
Here we go. Intersection.
I don't... I'll never forget this. Never.
We're turning.
Amanda.
Coming up on a car.
The car did a better job than if somebody was driving.
You just said the same thing. You two said the same thing.
But I don't try.
Uh-oh.
Amanda.
Why are we slowing down?
Oh no. Now what?
I don't know why it's slowing down.
See, Amanda? I told you.
Maybe it's just being careful here.
Technology. Well, now we're going to have to walk, probably.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so there is a part 2. As I said, all the references, the videos, the research I'm going to share with you is all accessible right after this talk. But I love that video because that is the face of everyone in our industry today. A little bit delighted, a little bit terrified, pretty sure something wonderful is going to happen, but maybe something really awful is going to happen too. That's where we are with AI. And I don't have to go through these slides because we all know from the number of hands I saw this morning, we know AI can write copy, we know that it can generate great visuals, we know it can draft strategy decks, business cases, it can draft media plans, it can deploy your campaign. So my question isn't whether it can, it's whether it should. And what I want to leave you with is how to make great decisions for when it should. When you want to work with AI, and when you would be a fool to touch it. So let's talk first about where AI should use and be disappearing into your business. This is the whole talk in one slide. This is the framework that I have used with clients and with teams. The trouble happens when we confuse visible work and invisible work. I believe that you own visible work, and AI owns invisible work. That is the work that AI should be doing instead of you. Invisible work, as you can see from this lovely long list, is the work that your business depends on, but that the customer never sees. Data synthesis, media optimization, A/B testing. This is the stuff no human team can do manually, at speed or at scale. And if you are already using AI here, you are scaling your impact. And there's evidence around this too, because when companies apply AI to invisible work, the payoff is measurable. I really like the CMO survey by MIT, where it found that AI delivered 6.2% increase in sales productivity, 7% increase in customer satisfaction, and a 7.2% decrease in drop in marketing overhead. These are real numbers. And I bet if they did this again today, because this is over a year old, we would find these numbers being even more increased. But what I like even more about this particular study is the fact that this is something my teams have always found to be true too. When it comes to using AI, the companies that get the biggest payoffs are the ones that experiment more than half of the time. And so the payoff is earned by teams that aren't just enthusiastic and excited about trying AI. It's by those who are using it seriously. Do many of you know this framework? Since Luciana already said the word, I'm going to say it out loud. The more you fuck around, the more you find out. This is a concept that was originally used in parenting, fooling around and finding out, fucking around and finding out. And the idea here is that I use this with my teams because many of our teams do not feel that they have the permission to do this. Nikki talked about play. This is a way to talk about play. The companies that are getting the biggest payoffs from inserting AI in invisible work, as you just saw, are those that have incredible experimentation habits. They are the ones who know how to fuck around more to find out more. And it means that people on those teams are comfortable experimenting and playing in small ways on a Thursday like today, so that they don't have to be wrong at the end of the quarter, right, in a very big and costly way. But there's another side to it too. We don't talk about this ever. But if you don't fuck around and find out, your customers will do it for you. They will find out whether your AI personalized email, where it's no longer just the name, but all of the content is personalized, they will find out if it feels useful or creepy by clicking through or unsubscribing. They will find out if your AI chatbot is patronizing or respects them, and they will tell their friends. They will find out whether they can trust you with their data because they feel like you're constantly selling to them at the wrong time in the wrong way, and they will start looking elsewhere. And the reality is that we know that customers are already fucking around. Adyen, which is an incredible fintech in Europe, is tracking customer spending, and they found that globally, 49% of consumers are already using AI assistants to shop. In Latin America, you can see that this number is 52%. More than half of the people are already using AI assistants to shop. And of those, 70% of them say they are doing this because there is too much noise on social media, because it is easier to find inspiration through AI assistants than it is by searching the web. One of my colleagues who works with Pato over here, Joel, he tells me that when he's in the pub, he has friends and family who say to him, "Should I be booking my airfare at 3 a.m. with my VPN set to Ethiopia?" That is a customer fucking around to find out. That is a customer doing the work that you should be doing for them so they don't have to ask that question because they always feel like they are getting the best airfare. But the good news is there are ways to find out that are uncontrolled, and then there are ways to find out that are controlled. And I'm going to share with you what it looks like when you do controlled finding out, which is when you do not outsource your judgment to AI. And I will come back to that word. This is a real example. This is a large airline, 8 million customers. They have dozens of campaigns running at once. And the old way was, of course, to blast 4 million customers at 5 cents per message, with incremental revenue equal to that, and every customer gets flooded, and most messages are ignored. Now, what you can see here is an agentic AI decision engine, and it does something that no human team could do. It reads the behavioral signals across the entire base of customers. It works out per person which offer, which channel, which moment is most likely to move them. So now you have the same message, better matched customers, 10 cents per message instead of 5. And the customers who were not involved in this campaign, they're now freed up for your next campaign. This is the same budget, same contact policy, a double-digit lift on gross merchandise value. And this is because the team put AI to work for them in the invisible. But if you look at it again, you'll see what the AI is not doing. It isn't deciding brand voice. It isn't writing the offer. It isn't choosing which campaign to run. The marketers are doing that. The machine handles the combinations, the causal measurement, the continuous reallocation as preferences shift. The humans handle the strategy. They handle the creative direction, the cultural calls, the human space that the machine gets to pick from. And this is what fantastic agentic personalization looks like. And this is not a one-off. There is some peer-reviewed research you can see at the bottom of the slide here that shows that this is in play for 150 million users, and it is highly effective across every industry. So it's worth repeating because that is a real example. Not only does the marketing team use the same budget, the same contact policy, but it is achieving double the revenue per message. And even more important, the customers feel seen, they do not feel targeted. That is AI at its best, right? It is doing the invisible so well that the experience stays human. So let's flip to the other side, the visible work. Visible work, as you can see, is everything from brand voice to cultural context, storytelling, judgment calls, reading the room. This is the work that shows up with your name on it. This is the stuff the customer remembers, the stuff that moves the customer. You may have seen this research before, I like it a lot. After ChatGPT launched, researchers at Boston University tracked two platforms, both beloved by developers. They tracked Stack Overflow and the traffic to Reddit, same audience. Stack Overflow is a place you go as a developer for information. Reddit is a place you go for conversation. Look at the traffic for the same audience. After ChatGPT launched, the traffic plunged at Stack Overflow, and it stayed steady at Reddit. The reason for that, again, this is the same audience, the reason for that is because one is a commodity, information, that AI can provide, and the other, human connection, the human connection you get from conversation, from dialogue, from community. That's what Reddit provides. AI cannot and should not do that. So you will have this framework for yourself, but it's an easy way to think about whatever your industry is, whatever your level is in the organization, where are you spending most of your time now? Are you spending most of your time on the invisible work, the stuff that AI should be doing? Or are you spending more of your time on the visible work, community, emotional connection, experience design, culture? This is where you would have an advantage. So the real question now that we have this framework, is how do we spend more of our time on the visible work and let the machine, let AI do the invisible work? Do you all remember this? Do you remember when Google launched its image generator before it was Google DeepMind? People asked it to come up with historically significant figures. And if you recall, for those of you who know, the outputs were almost aggressively, proudly diverse, right? So you had US founding fathers who were completely inaccurate. You had Asian female Vikings. And this was not a data problem, right? We know that Google has incredible engineers, has incredible data. This was a judgment problem. This was a system that was trained to optimize for diversity in every output. Instead of somebody applying context, applying taste, applying judgment to say, not in this case, not in these cases, not under this context, should we actually apply that same protocol. When AI gets something wrong, it is rarely the machine's fault, it is our fault. And we've heard this word now from both Nikki and from Giuseppe, the word taste. This is a quote from John Maeda. I like John Maeda a lot. He's now been at Microsoft for a number of years. And at South by Southwest, every year, he puts out a report that is called Design in Tech. And this year's headline is that we are moving from design as execution to design as evaluation. And what that really means is that the skill is no longer making the thing. You've heard a lot about AI commoditizing that, but it's about knowing whether the thing is actually any good. And he calls taste the biggest competitive advantage today. So what exactly is taste? To me, taste is the judgment that refuses to settle. It is the difference between good and good enough. And I know that even with a definition like that, it can feel a little bit fuzzy. So I want to show you how this is something that is highly trainable. And I believe that it's trainable across 3 different areas. Now, we've got some incredible creatives coming to talk to you this afternoon, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on creative taste. But at the end of the day, creative taste is simply knowing the difference between adequate and excellent. There's a wonderful newsletter by a writer called Shlomo Genshin. I love this newsletter, and what he does is he puts side-by-side reviews, it's called The Creative Marketer, side-by-side reviews of ads. And he shows 2 ads for the same product. One of them is technically accurate and perfectly fine and forgettable. The other one, however, is what you stop scrolling to actually pause and have a look at. Same ad for the same product. And the difference here is not the tool. The difference is the point of view. The difference is the application of taste. Cultural taste. I have heard enough Chilean to know that the Spanish here is not the same Spanish that will work in Mexico City or in Valencia. An LLM trained on US English is unlikely to be able to truly tell the difference, even when you have domain-specific AI, which I spend a lot of time in. I am French, and I can tell you that the French that works in Marseille is not the French that works in Paris. And that's important because language, we know, is only one part of culture. And so I have just moved from London to Amsterdam, as you heard in the introduction. It's a 40-minute flight. It's a 4-hour train ride. But what works within that distance in the UK versus what works in the Netherlands is remarkably different, and it requires that cultural taste. And then this is the third one, causal taste, and I'm going to spend the most amount of time here. And I doubt that you've heard of this before, but I'm kind of playing on words here. But I believe that causal taste is marketing's secret weapon. And that is because this is all about decision science. Now, a lot of people nod when I say things like, AI is brilliant at finding patterns that move together, but correlation isn't causation. You've probably heard that before. Correlation isn't causation. It's important to understand what that actually means. When you are looking forward, AI can predict what is likely to happen, but it cannot account for the variables that you have not input into the system. And it cannot tell you what would happen if you did this differently, nor what it would cost if you get it wrong. If you are looking backwards, when you look at results, AI will be able to tell you if you got a lift or if you got a plunge on something, but it will not be able to tell you with any confidence what would have happened if you had, again, applied a different indicator, a different variable, or whether that was just going to happen anyway. That is important. AI can tell you correlation, not causation, unless you apply decision science. And this is a discipline. Amazing marketers are doing this so well. Amazing marketers understand that causal taste is a discipline that exists within decision science. And decision science is the biggest lever for marketing performance, for measuring impact across the work that you're doing in marketing, but critically also for measuring the value of your investment in AI with incredibly high degrees of accuracy. And this is particularly important because we know that execution is almost free. So strategy is the only thing that matters. And the consequence of not honing your causal taste, I promise I will show you examples of this in just a minute, is that you will increase the cost of being wrong rather than increasing the value of being right. So to be really clear, what I am saying is that the smartest guesses, the most informed assumptions that you might make as marketers is no longer acceptable. You must use decision science, because if you pick the wrong direction at AI speed, you're just getting wrong faster. So I want to bring this back to that CMO survey. Do you remember the 3 stats that I showed you? Remember, the piece that I found most interesting was the fact that the companies that are embedding AI into their invisible work effectively are experimenting more than half the time. Decision science is science. It requires experimentation. And experimentation is taste. operationalized. This is truly how you become a data-driven marketer and how you know that your instinct is right, not just loud. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in practice. A retail client came to my colleague Alicia, and this is a pretty typical marketing problem. This is a promotions problem, as you can see. If you send everyone a discount, you give away margin to people who are going to buy anyway. If you give no one a discount, you leave revenue on the table. And obviously, the standard answer is segmentation. But frequently, we think that segmentation is static, and what we might define today might also work in 3 months. This requires a human voice. The strategic question that Alicia and her team asked was not who clicks, not even who buys, but it was who needs the discount and who would have bought anyway. That's the judgment call. That is the visible work, which sets up the entire system. And so that's what we did. We built a system with the thing that AI is genuinely brilliant at, a learning system that does 2 things at once. It uses AI to help you explore, constantly testing and shifting segments of customers and seeing how they respond to different offers. And then by itself, AI also exploits, sending or holding the email in real time to maximize revenue, learning from every send, from every open, from every purchase. We are talking about millions of micro decisions every hour, every day, every week. No human team could do this manually, and frankly, no human team should try. And in this case, you can see that we saw a 33.4% lift in campaign revenue. What's more important here is, of course, more, but we were sending smarter. And I want to reiterate here that the AI doesn't decide what to test. The human does. Alicia and her team did. The human also shapes the parameters that AI should look out for. And when the results come in, the human has to apply judgment, because in that case, one of the variants that won on click-throughs, and it also won on long-term retention. So the human had to apply judgment to determine which of those mattered more. So the machine gave us speed, and the human gave us the strategy. Now, some of you have probably read this book, Drive, by Dan Pink, from a while ago. I've been a fan of Dan Pink for a long time, and he puts out a ton of phenomenal content around behavioral science. And he once made a recommendation that has stuck with me, and I saw it again recently, so I wanted to include it here. He said, when you are stuck on a decision, ask yourself what you would tell your best friend to do.
Ask yourself, what would I tell my best friend to do? Very quickly, you will know, because you're putting yourself outside of yourself and looking at your problem like an outsider.
So what's interesting about this is that the research shows you that you give a lot clearer advice to other people, and that distance allows you to apply judgment, that objectivity. And I want you to hold on to that trick, because in a couple minutes, I'm going to show you a prompting formula, and there's an opportunity here to think about how distance can help you make better decisions. So this is it. This is when we start to get to the very practical. So to add to all of the things that Nikki gave you to do on a Monday, I'm going to give you some more. So tip number 1, apply taste. Apply this concept of judgment before you prompt. This is all about asking yourself, should AI do it, and why? This is about exercising judgment on the visible work before handing the invisible work to AI. So I'm going to run through each one of these. If you are an avid, experienced AI user, you can use this to improve the quality of your outputs. If you are doing this fresh, you don't have to admit it. It will work just as well for you. T. T is for task. And we know the answer when you're prompting an AI tool is never write a campaign. But it can be short if the tool has your foundational principles, your objectives, your brand guidelines, your examples. So maybe it's as simple as write 3 15-second script variants for an Instagram reel promoting Crocs. A is for audience. Who is this for? Be really specific about who you are targeting. If you've already got archetypes or personas or profiles, synthetic, real, or AI generated, it's great if you've got them uploaded. But go a step further. Be specific. Say that you're looking for working mothers in Sao Paulo between the ages of 28 and 40, and that they have tried premium coffee and found it pretentious. Make it human. S is standard. Standard is, what does good look like? But perhaps even more important is, what does not good look like? This is important because as you start to develop your taste, you need to get a good sense of what you don't want to be. We heard a lot about authenticity. This is where authenticity comes in. So you could say, for example, that I'm looking for something funny, but warm, applicable to all ages. It's not smug. It withstands the test of time. It's not trying too hard. You see, I'm starting to get more and more specific about the standard of what I believe good is. T is for tone. Whose voice? Please, don't cop out and simply say on brand. This is an opportunity to be specific again. I find the most helpful thing here is to provide specific examples and sentences rather than just a list of traits or adjectives. And speaking of example, E is for example. Include, please, at least one example of what is the thing that you are asking for. It can be one of your own, it can be a competitor's, it can be an analogous example that you are inspired by. One example is worth 10, 20, 30 adjectives. And so what I want to suggest is that if you use this tool, what you will find is that the quality of your output becomes proportional to the quality of those 4 letters, the quality of your taste, which is obviously exactly the point. So speaking of taste and judgment, I'm going to play you a clip in a minute from a new podcast that I like. This is a podcast called The Curiosity Shop. It's hosted by Brené Brown, a social scientist, and Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist. And in a moment, you're going to hear Adam Grant talk about judgment.
Right, to interrogate sources as opposed to just accepting them, to have standards of evidence and say, okay, let me see, like, is this claim backed by a randomized controlled trial or by a longitudinal study? If not, it might just be someone's opinion. I think that we spend so much time putting out little fires as opposed to zooming out and asking, what is causing the forest fire? The problem that we need to solve is not there's a specific piece of misinformation that people are buying into. It's that people lack the tools to evaluate information accurately.
Yes.
And also, sometimes they lack the motivation to evaluate it accurately.
So you heard Giuseppe earlier today talking about the difference between signal and noise, right? Right after Adam says this, Brené Brown talks about the fact that her team was conducting a literature review for a new piece of research that they were putting out. And they ran this with 2 parallel tracks. One was human, and one was purely AI. So human researchers and AI. And when they compared the results, 60 to 70% of the outputs that AI generated were completely fabricated. Completely hallucinated, confidently hallucinated, beautifully formulated. There was even a citation that said that Adam Grant and Brené Brown had authored research together that was featured in MIT Sloan Management Review. They had never written together. Until a few months ago, they didn't even like each other. And so this is a judgment problem. AI optimizes for patterns, and AI is unable to understand whether, as Brené Brown says, a peer-reviewed study is as important as a Reddit user saying, I got a new boat. So my second tool is incredibly important too, and it comes after the taste prompt formula. It is to hire for taste and to train for tools. So I have used this interview question actually now for about 3 years, and it's so simple, and it works beautifully. And it will tell you so much more than the AI synthesis of the AI-created CV or resume that you got, as well as the behavioral interview questions that you're getting. And it's as simple as, show me 2 pieces of work and tell me why you believe they are excellent. And what you're listening for is whether they can articulate the difference between good and not good, and what they ascribe that to. Those are the skills that you want, because you know if you hire for skills, technical skills, by the end of the summer, people are going to be learning new workflows, new tools. Tip 3 is all about experimentation at scale. I believe that the way that your marketing stays good, the way that you achieve the authenticity, the way that you achieve the relevance that you heard from our prior speakers today, is to experiment more than you think you should. AI just made execution almost free. You can generate hundreds of variants before lunch. But cheap speed is only valuable if you know what you are accelerating. Otherwise, you're just scaling the wrong thing or the bad thing faster. And this is where decision science comes in. I've told you that AI is brilliant at finding patterns and correlations, but it is genuinely bad at understanding which of those things actually caused the result that you anticipated, which means that you cannot have confidence in your results unless you apply decision science. Experiments reveal cause. And then great design helps you see how cause is actually created between the data points and how you might actually act on those. So another quick example of experimentation in practice. My colleague Louisa is working with one of Europe's largest outdoor retailers, and they asked us to advise on geo-experimentation, which is the sciencey method for looking at what actually works in marketing, specifically what causes a sale. And some platforms have this built in. So you'll see that last year, Google cut the cost of incrementality when it comes to its own experiments from $100,000 to $5,000. There are some open source libraries from Meta and others. So the problem is not the tool. The problem is that most companies do not have the expertise to design rigorous experiments that actually answer the business questions. That expertise is still a human skill, and those of you nodding, because I can see a few of you nodding, know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the combination of judgment plus statistics. Experimentation is how you have confidence in the marketing that you are doing. It's how you have confidence that AI is working for you, not against you, and that your judgment is applied in the right ways. I want to give you one last piece of research before I give you my last tip. BCG surveyed 1,500 full-time workers earlier this year about something that they call AI brain fry. That is the mental fog that we get from overseeing too many AI tools. So look at the function that is sitting at the top of that chart at 26%. That's marketing. Higher than HR, higher than operations, higher than engineering, higher than finance, higher than IT. Now look at this chart. This is from the same study. Productivity rises when you use 1 tool, 2 tools, 3 tools, but after 3, it falls. Multitasking with multiple AI tools is causing brain fry. It is making up to 39% of marketers create more major errors. It is creating 39% more decision fatigue, and 33% of marketers actively want to quit because of this brain fry. So for me, I don't know why companies are still measuring usage statistics or the deployment of licenses or the consumption of tokens. That's only measuring usage. It's not actually measuring capability. Which brings me to tip 4, which is all about measuring confidence, not usage. I generally feel like a lot of the metrics that we're using today, I've now worked in AI transformation for a number of years, most of the metrics are vanity metrics. They're usage metrics. People are trying to justify the spend rather than actually understanding what they might be able to achieve. But I've already told you that usage without judgment risks just being faster mediocrity. So what you actually want to measure is confidence, because confidence is what turns capability into a tool. So I have used this tool. It's called the AI Confidence Ladder. I've used it now for 2 years. And I'm going to run through it super, super quickly. And this is a tool that I think you should all be considering. If you are on rung 1, this is somebody saying, who is not in this room, somebody saying, I don't use AI. We all know why we should not be at rung 1. Rung 2, this is someone who says, I use AI, but I second guess everything that it produces. So in this case, their judgment is still doing all of the work, just slower than if they were using AI. Rung 3, this is aware. This is when someone knows the difference between invisible work and visible work. Rung 4 is author. This is when somebody says, I design prompts, workflows, I design checkpoints to bring my taste into the system before AI produces the output, not afterwards. You are authoring where AI shows up in your work. And rung 5, something we should all aspire to, is when you've reached the architect stage. This is when you coach your teams on when to use AI, when not to. This is when you've built processes, you've built metrics, you've built hiring around the judgment you want to keep human. So I'm quickly going to bring these together for the next 4 Mondays. I have about 3 minutes left of content for anybody who's checking the clock. On Monday number 1, Monday, May 11. Unless you're working tomorrow, we can turn these into Fridays. Run your first taste review. Use that taste formula. Download that taste formula. Take 3 AI outputs from last week, a campaign brief, a social caption, a discount, a business case. Put the 5 letters against each one. Was the task specific? Was the audience known? Was the standard set? Is the tone yours? Was there an example? If you score low, you know why. This is an opportunity for you to rethink some of the work that you're doing. Tip number 2, talking about May 18. This tip number 2 was all about hiring for taste. So pick one reoccurring team workflow and split it into 2 columns, invisible work and visible work. Be honest about which tasks sit where. And then do the same thing again, assuming if you had done it in the ideal fashion. The things that exist in invisible work that are being done by AI, take those back. The things that exist in invisible work that you are still doing, ask yourself, how can you do this with AI? And if you do this in public, you are setting the standards of what good looks like for your entire team. And as you hire marketers, they will also have a blueprint for what judgment, good judgment looks like. Tip number 3, run your first experiment. What's one thing that your team believes to be true, but you haven't actually tested rigorously, so you don't actually know the data, the causation? Could be a creative direction, could be a pricing hypothesis. Write down what you expect to happen before you run your experiment, and make sure that you've got the ability to test causation. Make sure you are not simply testing correlation. And if you don't know how to do this, then spend the rest of the week writing a brief to make sure that you can build a robust experimentation engine within your marketing team. And tip 4, it is already June 1st, so soon. A lot of what we've done over these past 3 Mondays has been pretty functional, but we cannot forget the social and emotional component of AI. It's a lot of why we are here today. So this is when you have an opportunity to start to look at your team and audit your team against that confidence ladder. Don't judge, just map where people are and have people themselves ask themselves, what might they do to move up a rung on that ladder, to increase confidence, because increasing confidence is going to increase capability. So I've tried to show you how AI can exist in your invisible work, and I tried to define for you what invisible work looks like. I've also tried to show you what it looks like for AI and your judgment to show up in your visible work. And you've got 4 tips to add to the tip that Nick gave you to apply on Monday. But I want you to remember this. This is the most important thing I want you to keep with. AI makes your human judgment more important, not less. And there's evidence that supports this. Harvard, don't worry, you can download it all afterwards. Harvard Business School professor Srinivasan and his team, they looked at every US job posting after ChatGPT launched, but they looked at it across 2019 all the way to 2025. And what they found is that job postings for highly automatable jobs, so jobs that have structured tasks, repetitive tasks, they fell by 13%. They also found that job postings that can be augmented by AI, ones that need human judgment alongside technology, they grew by 20%. This is evidence that human judgment is being valued up, not down. And then the last thing, remember what I told you about that CMO survey, that the companies that were successfully embedding AI into their invisible work were experimenting more than half the time? Experimentation is judgment operationalized. Do not skimp on experimentation. It requires the effective use of decision science, and it is how you will have the confidence to ask for more budget to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve for your clients. So please remember that that judgment is not a feeling. There is a way very specifically to apply science through causal inference, through controlled experimentations to make your taste reliable. This is where confidence comes in. So we started with our customers, and I want to finish with a customer, because the first ones were skeptical, but they were also kind of wondrous. And I have watched this video more times than I can count, and every time it is a reminder of why I do what I do.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Hola. Me alegro. ¿En qué puedo ayudarte hoy?
¿En qué me puedes ayudar? Pues en nada. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Si necesitas algo en el futuro, aquí estoy. Que tengas un buen día.
Igualmente, muchas gracias.
No, pregúntale algo. ¿Hay algo de lo que te gustaría hablar o aprender más? Estoy aquí para ayudarte.
Pues ahorita no, fíjate, muchas gracias.
Entiendo. Cuando quieras charlar o necesites algo, no dudes en decirme.
Gracias.
Cuídate.
Gracias, igualmente.
De nada. Que tengas un gran día.
Igualmente.
Hasta luego. Cuídate.
Gracias. Igualmente, cuídate tú también.
Gracias. Hasta la próxima.
Ok. ¿De qué te ríes?
Nada en particular. Solo me alegra poder charlar contigo. Que tengas un buen día.
Igualmente. Bye.
Adiós. Cuídate.
Igual.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Adiós. Que estés bien.
Igualmente. Bye.
Pregúntale algo. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Adiós. Cuídate.
Igual.
Okay, I could play that all day. It is so good. But I wanted to show you that because I started by telling you I am a marketer first, transformation lead second, and a consultant third. And the reason that I do all of those things, the reason that I have stepped from one role to the next, is because we are designing from everybody who gets into that Waymo and has an experience where they are terrified, to the people who don't know how to use something and who find it endearing and frustrating at the same time. We are the function who can see customers as people. Stop talking about data, stop talking about segments, talk about people. I have redesigned my entire talent function so that we never talk about anything other than people. That is what humanizing AI looks like. And our job is to make sure that we don't simply contribute to more noise or put more generic AI recommendations out there into the world, but think deeply about the visible work that is yours. It should show up in the world with your taste, with your judgment, making it really clear that someone was involved in this. My hope is that you found this practical. You can download the research, the videos, the references, and those specific tools from this QR code. I'll be around the rest of the day. Thank you for tolerating me speaking in English.